hunger and discord, and have joy and a world at peace. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness which is free from suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness which is free from suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness which is free from suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. So again, just checking that you're sitting comfortably, that your back is straight, alert and relaxed. This posture of dignity and openness and stability. And resting our attention on the sensations of the breath entering and leaving through the nostrils. Just a bare attention, not changing anything, not adjusting the breath, just noticing the natural breath. And the mind will wander, it will get lost. We simply keep coming back. And if any other sensation begins to dominate, physical pain or discomfort, painful emotions, sounds, we can use this as the object of our meditation. Just resting our awareness in anything that becomes dominant. And then coming back to the breath. Great questions. So maybe I'll look at the ones on how do you sit with or deal with difficult emotions that come up, such as fear, anxiety, guilt? Same question for acute physical pain during meditation. Concentrating on thoughts or emotions were like roller coaster rides. Is it that I was confused about emotions, or do I need more control over my emotions? Mm-hmm. So Mingyur Rinpoche talks about his anxiety attacks for quite a long time in his life. He suffered from severe anxiety attacks. I mean, to the point of thinking, that he would die. Like often people who have severe panic attacks can genuinely feel like they're having heart attacks. So he was born into a meditation family, so he had teachers on tap, and he asked his father what to do, and his father said, be friends with your anxiety, with your panic. So Rinpoche said that he then spent a couple of years being friends, inverted comma, with his panic, but always with the subtext of I'm befriending you so that you'll go away. Yeah. So this is very likely in our practice when we start to connect with difficult emotions, if we're willing to. There's still it's very conditional. Yeah, we've got it. We've got a contract going on, and there's an aversion. There's a criticism and a judgment and an aversion involved. So we're really just continuing the harm, the aggression towards ourselves. And it might look like we've dressed it up into some virtuous activity. But this comes back also to, again, accepting the truth of suffering and being okay with not being okay. But also, there's a wisdom in our willingness to be with the negative emotions and the physical pains and really all of the what we experience as obstacles and suffering in our lives and in our practice. But if we are willing to be with them, and I know, for some people the word friend might be too much of a stretch. Friends with it? What, could you just be in the room with it? Could you, can you just accept it to be in the room? But that willingness to be with it is already seeing it from a more spacious perspective. So, as Rinpoche says, the observing of the discomfort, it's like being out of the river. We're not in the river. We're observing it. It's still there. It's still painful. It's still trundling past us and disturbing us, but we're observing it. And the observation is happening from that clean, clear, spacious mind, that is able to allow everything to arise and pass. Now I'm going to do a little visual aid here. And I don't know if this is a universal symbol. And I don't know if you can see it at the back. Yeah? So I won't ask you the question, but if I were to ask the question, what I would anticipate you would say, what is this? A picture of a bird. Yeah? And I will say, no, it's a picture of the sky. And there's a bird flying through it. So this is the perspective that we have to change from, like we identify with the objects that arise in the mind, and we forget the space. The bird can only pass through the sky because there is a sky. And also, milking the analogy, the bird leaves no trace as it flies through the sky. So this little thing is everything that arises in the mind. Negative emotions, all of the sensations, physical pain. These are all arising and passing in the space, in the open, spacious sky. There's room for all of it. And it leaves no trace. But our grabbing it and then adding layer upon layer upon layer upon layer on top of it, like me the other night hearing the sound lasted that long. But immediately on hearing it, or immediately after hearing it, I labeled it. That's a religious festival coming through a loudspeaker. It's going to keep me awake all night. Why the hell did they have loudspeakers at 3 o'clock in the morning? Yeah? So all of that, these are like layered after, and so I'm just relating back to, I hear the noise and I identified, oh yeah, that's the noise that I've heard all of those other times when I was kept awake, da 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 da. So bang, I'm completely identified with the story. There's nothing fresh happening. I'm just lost in my reactivity. And genuinely, that is how we spend a lot of our lives. Speak for myself. So it's just about seeing it. And the seeing it is liberating it, is freeing it. So that willingness to be with our negative emotions is, again, everything can be an object of our practice, and should be. Whatever is arising in our lives, that's what we practice with. In their essence, all of these emotions are empty. They're bubbles, just as we are empty. As in, there's nothing solid, there's nothing permanent, there's nothing stable about them. Again, Mingyur Rinpoche describes it as like shaving foam. I don't know if, are we all familiar with shaving foam? So once I can see my dad with a face covered with shaving foam. It looks like it is solid, yeah, like this big solid mass. But if you examine it, it's just loads of bubbles. So again, the staying away from the emotions and the staying away from them is a protective mechanism. It's our best effort. At, you know, we're trying to take care of ourselves. It's just not going to work. So rather than, yeah, as long as we stay away from it, it seems like it's this solid, permanent thing that you bump up against. But the being with it and the experiencing it directly, we get to see that it's made up of many, many different parts. And even as we look into all of those parts, you can't find the, you know, where's the anger? Where is it? As you look, it just shows up as many, many, many different causes and conditions coming together that we then label, this is what it is. But, and I won't go into this, but there's beautiful teachings on what are called the five wisdom energies. And what's being shown in all of those teachings is that all of these, it's a little bit like compare, well, all of these emotions, all of the sensations that arise in our minds and are experienced as negative, in their essence, because they don't have any solid fixed entity. So as we turn towards them, they reveal themselves in their essence as being wisdom energies. They're all, yeah, it's like they all are just energies. And it's a beautiful thing to, so that willingness to be with it, because we are innately good, all of the negativities don't have a logical basis. They are mistaken and delusional. So everything that's arising, if we're willing to look at it and be with it, we get to see it. Oh, it's wisdom energy. Think about a big pile of poop. If you're going to smear it all over your body, then it's a mess. But if you take it and put it out into the garden, you can use it as fertilizer to grow beautiful flowers. So in and of itself, it's not any one thing. It's just what you do with it. So yeah, I said it the other day, like our darkest dragons are our deepest treasure. We don't have to throw anything out. We just have to relate to it differently. But that said, you don't go for the big stuff to begin with. So when you do start to work with emotions, just using that, or physical pain, or anything that's arising, we can start with the lesser triggering ones. And then as we gain confidence that we do have the capacity to relate to our emotions differently, then we can start to move into the more challenging ones. With the more challenging ones as well, and Rinpoche talked about this in relation to his panic, he also had the panic of panic, which is added on top. And that is what happens. Something happens in our life, and then we just get more and more layers around it, so that when we hear about it, no, can't touch that because. So that's like the outer level of it. That's the point of contact with it. And so that's what we can meet in our practice. So yeah, the fear of the fear, the panic of the panic, the anticipation of this is going to happen and I'm going to go there. It's like, okay, so that's the space where I can meet it. That's what's most immediate. Or when you're sitting with the practice and even doing that is, I don't know, too much and I'm lost in the emotion, then you can come back, because a lot of the emotions as well, they will show up in the body. So when we're working with, using it as the object of our meditation, it does include feeling the sensations that come with it. There might be a tightening at the heart, heat somewhere, some sort of trembling, whatever it shows up. So again, if it starts to get too intense, you can move to maybe more neutral sensations in the body, just like the feeling of the heaviness, the sitting on the sense of gravity, or just focus on sensations in your fingers, or just expanding out into a more safe space. Or change the practice to, you could be listening to sound, come back to noticing the breath, or take a break. Just get up and have a walk, have a cup of tea. All of it with kindness to yourself. And also, again, and I don't, we can't overemphasize this, like really building the confidence that we can do this because it is in our nature to do it. It's nothing, it's not that some people in the room are better at it than others. This is our potential, this is who we really are. But it will take us a long time because we haven't been doing it for such a long time. This example, so Rinpoche was doing this as well. It's like, okay, this is my habit of playing with my cell phone and constantly checking and looking at Facebook and wondering if how many more WhatsApp messages there are. And 6 hours since I last checked, surely somebody's sent something since then. I mean, you haven't answered. And so that's going on, yeah? And then we try to stop that. But this is our habit now. So it's like, okay, I'm just gonna stop doing that. Oh, it did. Sorry, it was meant to roll back again. Anyway, the principle is that it does take time to let go of these habits because we have tightened our mind around them. And so to come back to that spacious openness, we just have to keep doing it. Okay, so let's do it. Sorry, just on that too, talking about it being like a roller coaster ride. When we start to look at it, it does look worse. It can look worse. But it's really only that we're noticing what we haven't been paying attention to. So you're not getting worse, you're just noticing. So, if we decide to wash clothes, then the water is going to get dirty. And so the whole thing looks like it's gotten a lot darker, but we're just loosening what was already in there. So please take a stretch if you need to. So this is similar to a question the other day. I feel I have a strong need to be seen a certain way, the need to be accepted. I find myself constantly wondering what other people around me are thinking about me. I've been noticing this especially clearly within this conducive environment. Also seem to desire myself, I seem to derive my self-worth on these things. How could I let go of this? See it. Again, it's very common. I'd said, the yogi up in the cave, the last thing to go is wondering what the people down in the village think of them. And Mingyur Rinpoche, when he went on this wandering for 4.5-year retreat, which was very brave, he left the comforts of his monastery and his status as a revered teacher, and just headed off with very, very little money. I mean, I think enough money maybe for the first week or two, and then spent, I think 4.5 years just as a wandering ascetic. But in those initial nights, his plan was to sleep on the train platform in Bodh Gaya airport, and along with many other people sleeping there. But he found himself too uncomfortable because of what other people might be thinking of him. So he used his money to sleep in a dormitory. And when he spoke about that too, he was saying, I guess, I don't think he used these words, but that he allowed himself that comfort in an already very uncomfortable situation. So it's not that he was lacking courage, but he was also very pragmatic about, the kind of, that there's still the necessity to be kind to ourselves and to be realistic about where we're at on the path. So I guess it's finding the sweet spot between some discomfort, but not too much, that is going to break you, or make you completely adverse to the practice. But yeah, it's just seeing it, and just knowing how deep it is, how much we rely on appearances and seek our validation from. We think that it's all coming from that external. Like if somebody smiles at me, or somebody tells me I'm great, or we're like, yeah, I'm okay. And I've heard one teacher say, like, if everybody in this room said to me, "You're the best teacher we've ever had," and then one of you went, not, wasn't that great, that's the one you'll hook onto. Yeah. So it's very, very precarious. It's so, yeah, you can't rely on it. But we try. So on that note, could you share what inspired you to embrace the monastic way of life? Did you ponder about it for a long time, or was it a quick decision? It would be inspiring to know your story of this journey so far. I met the Dharma about 33 years ago, something like that. I was living in London. I was on my way to Australia, and I stopped here. I was studying homeopathy at the time as well, and homeopathy is well established here in India, so I had a placement in Delhi. I wasn't looking for religion. I wasn't looking for a spiritual path. I'd been raised Catholic, and I had thrown it out. I'm turning this into a long answer. I knew that would happen. So anyway, I turned up at Tushita. I did the Introduction to Buddhism course in 1993, I think, something like that. And I was really shocked. I was very shocked to hear that you could know reality. That was a big surprise to me. But that's what I felt like I was hearing, that they were explaining everything. I'm like, what? So something about that was like deeply attractive. I got to meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama in a line audience, and my experience of that was, I felt like this was going to be a great travel story that I could share with people. This was in the day where you wrote aerograms. They were A4 size, and you folded them up and sent them off. And everybody got very adept at writing in tiny writing, because you wanted to cram in all your story into this little space. But anyway, I just thought this is going to make a great aerogram. I can tell everybody that I met this famous person. So I guess, there was pride there, there was anticipation, there was excitement. I wouldn't say there was devotion, or like my heart wasn't sitting there at the top of it. So and we were moving closer, and genuinely my story was just getting more and more like puffed up as we got closer. And then in the moment where I got to touch His Holiness, he held my hands. All I can say is that the story just fell out of my mind. It was just gone. And it was just space. Not a capital S, woo, but a very ordinary sense of being present. And then I thought, oh, what was that? And I thought it was disappointment. I tried to label it as disappointment, because His Holiness didn't meet what I was expecting. I was projecting all of this onto him, and it just wasn't there. But I can look back on it and describe it as the most ordinary, the most grounded moment in my life. I felt really just, yeah, just that, ordinary. And then I burst out crying, and I stayed crying for quite a long time. And I genuinely just couldn't take my hands apart. They were, yeah, I was just like this. Fast forward, fast forward. I ended up marrying one of the people on the course, as you do. And genuinely, we connected with each other in noble silence. So then later in our marriage, it was a shock to me. It's like, you never talk. And then I'm thinking, yeah, but I did meet him in noble silence, so, you know, you were okay with that. So we had a very confused relationship. And genuinely were living in different parts of the world at the same time. It was very unusual. But we did have two boys together, and they're now in their 20s. And the two boys were aged 5 and 3, the 5-year-old said one day, sitting around the table, "Mommy, why aren't you a nun?" And it was literally the first time that it was spoken, literally the first. So, yeah. Did I ponder it for a long time? Or was it a quick decision? Both. I think both. I did feel it. I did feel it in my, like, this is what I'd like to do. And I'm thinking, well, how the hell is that going to happen? You've got a husband, you've got young children. Um, I felt very confused with it and torn. And I remember having this um, discussion with myself. Okay, you know you want to do this. Tick that box. You know it's valuable. You don't know how it's going to happen or when. So just leave it alone. It'll take care of itself. And it might not be this lifetime. Just let it go. And I did. Like, I genuinely let it go. So when we talk about, like, all of this practice is about letting go, letting go, letting go. The experience of letting go is quite lovely when it happens. And it drops from an intellectual, yeah, I know I've got to let go. It drops into knowing, direct knowing, yeah. And so actually that's responding to the, you know, how do we know which thoughts are virtuous and so on. Let thoughts go. We over-rely on them. We expect too much from them. Even the virtuous ones, just, you know, have a bit more silence. And we'll drop into knowing. And out of that, we'll find our direction. It's not to say don't use thoughts. They have got their use, but they are limited. So yeah, dropping into the knowing aspect of the mind, because it just naturally knows. So yeah, that's it. I mean, I remember, oh yeah, and then not long after my beloved son said, "Why aren't you a nun?" They went off for a weekend together, Dad and the two boys, camping and being boys, scouts and football, and I had no interest in that. And my husband had said that he wanted to do lots of camping once the boys were ready to climb trees. So one chapter was ending, the chapter of me being at home, nurturing them and loving them, and then the new part of it was, you know, out into the world, being scouts together. And I literally spent, the first weekend they went off camping, I spent the whole weekend crying. And I didn't have words for it, but there was just tears. And I didn't know, I didn't have a story, I didn't have a plan, but I was crying. And when they came back, there was this very, after the boys had gone to bed, there was a very awkward moment where Michael's looking at me and he reached out and I just pulled away. And in my mind, I thought, oh no. And in that moment, he said, "It's time for you to leave. You need to be a nun." And he went on to say that his calling was to raise the boys and that my calling was to be a nun. Yeah. So that's the positive spin on the story. Then we went through the very, conventional reality of like fighting over custody and divorce courts and all the turmoil that comes with being a samsaric being. But it was held in that bigger space. Yeah. And we all get on very well together, I would say. You'd want to ask them as well, though. Yeah. But we did. We all got looked after in it. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, and not in the sense of, it isn't that. It's like, should I do this or should I do that? This was just going to happen, and we all had to just, you just have to get out of the way and let it happen. But trusting trusting the path. And somebody had asked this question. Wanting to get more involved in the Dharma and so on. Oh yeah. I've been very strongly feeling purposeful about dedicating my pending life to the formal study and personal practice of Buddhism and Buddhist philosophy. But I'm a bit scared about my lover partner and how I can keep financing this. How to be sure, underlined, this is the right thing to do. I struggle with the decision making in other areas of life as well. Join the club. But with Buddhism, I feel whole. Yeah, I think don't underestimate the power of prayer, the power of aspiration, the power of calling out for help. You can see it in some external way, or trust that it's coming from your inner wisdom as well. Yeah, have faith. I mean, having just said my story, don't replicate it in the sense of, I'm not saying regret, I don't mean that at all, but a little bit of pulling back and handing over and going, okay, whatever is the most benefit, like don't try and drive it. Does that make sense? Yeah? Hold it lightly, trust it, have confidence, keep making aspirations, keep getting rid of the things that are going to get in the way. But like that moment of me running down the steps, it's like, yay, I'm going to be a nun. It's like, oh my God, my mind's coming with me. And genuinely, that shock and that, like, you have to keep hitting up against that. You can't escape your own suffering. And putting on a different garb or going to a different place, or none of that's, necessarily going to work. Okay. By this virtuous action. Closing dedication. By the power of this compassionate practice, may suffering be transformed into peace. May the hearts of all beings be open and their wisdom radiate from within. Thank you.